This is Chris Badgett from Lifter LMS, and what I love about the Business Building Rockstar show is Nicole's ability to interview great guests, getting great ideas out of them, but even more importantly, she really drills in and gets those actionable nuggets of wisdom. Every time I listen to the show, I have a takeaway that I can go take action on immediately. Thank you, Nicole.
Hey there, entrepreneur. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Business Building Rockstar Show. Of course, I'm your host, Nicole Holland, and I'm really excited to bring you today's episode. Mitch Russo is a wonderful person that I've recently had the pleasure of getting to know, and we had a really interesting conversation here. He's super generous and has so much experience under his belt, and it is a pleasure to introduce you to him if you don't already know him. So high-level overview, Mitch Russo started a software company in his garage, later sold it for 8 figures, and then went on to work directly with Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes to build a $25 million business together. Mitch wrote a book called The Invisible Organization, How Ingenious CEOs Are Creating Thriving Virtual Companies. And I'm not going to hold you in suspense. I'm going to jump right in. So here is my interview with Mitch Russo. All right. Welcome, Mitch Russo, to the Business Building Rockstar Show. I'm super stoked to have you with me here.
Thanks, Nicole. Great to be with you today.
Awesome. So I've given our audience a high-level overview through your bio, but why don't you bring us up to speed and talk a little bit about what it is you're doing right now to serve and support your people?
Absolutely. And thank you for asking. You know, it's funny. The story starts with an event in my life over 40 years ago. And I'll tell you about it. I was a troubled teen. And I think you know this about me. I ended up with a drug problem in high school. And it became so severe that my folks decided to basically put me into a rehab facility to get better. And, you know, I'm very glad that they did. I emerged a healthy, strong, very focused young man. And I went off to conquer the world at 17. But it was a place that was very dark for me for a long time. So fast forward through all the things that I've done, and you read my bio, and so people know what I've done. About a year ago, I had this idea, and it was basically a problem that I needed to solve for myself, and a problem I knew everybody else had too, which is how can we finish the courses and programs that we actually purchased with the hope and idea of completing someday? Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but I have a spreadsheet on my hard drive that's a little embarrassing about all the list of all the courses and programs that I bought but never finished. And then I had this moment where I remembered solving this problem years ago that I had forgotten about. And the solution really came when I was the CEO of Business Breakthroughs with Chet Holmes and Tony Robbins. We built an accountability coaching program, and we charged CEOs $1,800 a month to be part of it. And we met with them 30 minutes per week for 4 weeks a month. And we asked them 5 questions. And for the most part, CEOs loved it. So we were able to keep our CEO clients accountable. We were able to keep those people who bought our programs in the program and working it just by keeping them accountable. So with that memory, I had the realization that, you know, I could build a software platform that would allow me to match people in the same program and get them to pair up as accountability partners. So that was an exciting idea. When I had it, I noodled it for several weeks. And sometimes, as you know, the universe brings us what we need at the right time and when we need it. And so as this idea was infecting me big time, and I couldn't sleep, and all I was thinking about it, and how can I build this? What could this be like? What would the experience be like? I ended up getting a call from a friend of mine who happens to be one of the top interface designers in the UK. And we worked together many years ago, and he called almost out of the blue, and we got talking, and I shared with him the idea, and he got inspired by it and said, let me design the interface for you. So I said, okay, but you know, I know you're expensive. He goes, look, it'll be worth it. Don't worry. And so I held my breath and I told him yes. And he went off and he designed this interface. And together it was fun because we got to work on the phone and on Skype a lot together for a little while. And I believe we came up with something that was incredibly perfect and really wonderful. And so now I had an interface idea, a design, and a program flow but I didn't know where I was going to get it built. So again, the universe comes in with solutions just as you need them. And I ended up getting introduced to somebody who basically said to me, hey, we have a team of programmers that basically they're done with us, but they're so good, I want to put them in the hands of somebody who really needs them. And I said, I think I know somebody who could really use them right now. And we got busy and we spent a year in development. And the process became so innovative that we ended up filing patents on it as well. So what has resulted is something called resultsbreakthrough.com. And this is basically like Match.com for entrepreneurs. So you go on, you create your profile just like you would for Match.com, and you set up exactly what you were looking for in terms of a partner, and you select the programs that you purchased or want help with. And the next thing you do is you execute a search. And when you do the search, you find somebody who also has the same programs, and you then invite them to connect. And this is very exciting because now two people who bought the same program, who have the same goals and objectives, get to work together weekly or as much as they want, and are able to finally get the programs that they're working on done. So that's the genesis of the idea. It's evolved quite a bit. We've built question libraries in there now. And so if you have a program and you'd like to have accountability for your program, you could literally put all of your accountability questions right from your curriculum directly inside of Results Breakthrough Network, so that when you invite your students in, you can then pair them up and they can get started. And as a course provider, if you do this, they're going to have higher completion rates than if you just let them off on their own. So that's the big idea. That's what I've been working on probably steadily for the last year.
Amazing. So needed. Let me ask you, how many courses do you currently have indexed? Do you know?
There's about 30 courses, and we're adding several per week. We recently added a full suite of courses from individual authors. So we have Charles Bird's new courses in there, and they're fantastic. And all the modules have accountability questions for all of that. I've also been chatting with some of the big names in our industry, and I don't think I can reveal who they are, but you'll know them all. And they're all very excited about getting involved.
Very cool. So I've got more questions about this. Like, we're not even diving into your story yet, but this is just really cool because one of the things that whenever I take on coaching clients, I want to know what their digital assets are, because how many people wind up hiring a qualified coach for their business after they've purchased so many digital programs and so many products that they've never completed, they've not had success with, they get frustrated, it sits on the digital shelf. I like to have it on an Excel spreadsheet too, but I honestly didn't know that when I started doing it. So it took me a while to go back and oh my gosh, I can't believe how many thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars I've spent on this information. And that's all it is. It's information, because I haven't had that transformational experience. And I love that you are basically you're reviving, you're stopping this from happening for courses that are new, right, that people are getting into, and you're reviving all this information people have purchased and giving them an opportunity to really go through it again from a different space with a partner and get the most out of it. So I think it's so cool, because most of the clients that I work with, and dare I say, I think all of the clients I've ever worked with, have not had a digital, a written spreadsheet of their digital library. So
right.
Very exciting.
Right. Well, again, we're basically helping people recover the money that they spent, and in a more artistic way of saying it, recover the dreams that they had and the goals that they set when they bought those programs.
I mean, I wound up finally getting into Ray Edwards' Copywriting Academy and loved it. But I mean, I still haven't gone through everything. But I wound up going to Ray Edwards, which I'm so glad I'm so glad I did. I highly recommend the program. But after I probably bought 4 copywriting programs that it just never clicked. The way of teaching or something just never really clicked for me. And Ray's program is so thorough, but still, I imagine I probably have gotten a lot more out of that if I had had a buddy that was going through it with me, right? Rather than just, because I'm the kind of person who, even if I would show up for the coaching calls, the webinar style group calls, there's a very limited time. And sometimes I didn't feel comfortable asking a question with so many people there. And so anyways, I'm really excited about what you've got going on. From a course creator standpoint, can I ask you a few questions? Because I know
absolutely, sure,
we've got a lot of listeners who are course creators, and maybe maybe you can tell me about your frequently asked questions. But I think one of the concerns I can imagine people having is, well, if I put all of my data into your system, how am I going to stop people from just saying they're in the program and getting access to my stuff without paying for it?
Well, first of all, they're not getting access to your training inside my program. They're getting access to the accountability questions for each module. So the accountability question might be, did you watch video number 1? The second question might be, did you complete the 4 exercises in video number 1? So, I mean, they're not getting what I would call intellectual property. They're getting to see the questions. But I also want to share something else with you. When I first presented this, the very first weekend it came live, I happened to be at a mastermind and I stood up and I did a 5-minute demo for everybody. And a man walks up to me right away and he says, look, I run a mastermind for 55 people and we charged, I think he said $22,000 per person. And I just want to buy a year for every person in the mastermind. And I said, great. And so we started chatting after the session was over. And again, I walked him through the software and he saw where he could put the questions in. And he said, I have one concern. I said, what's that? He goes, I don't want other people to see my questions. So I said, well, look, because you're coming in as a partner, I'm going to give you a feature that says lock my questions so that your students can unlock them when they get inside the Results Breakthrough Network. And he said, well, that's all I needed to hear. I'm in. So what we do is we have 2 prices. We have a monthly and a yearly price for consumers who come in. And then we have basically a wholesale price for people who run courses and programs so that they can sign up everybody in their program for a very little amount of money. The other thing that we do... That's
like as a value add that the course creator, the program facilitator gives to their... I did not realize that. Very interesting.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 ways that we offer this to program and course creators. One way is you can buy a seat for everybody, and it's roughly $25 a month per person. So if you're selling a $2,000 or $3,000 product and you allocate 10% of that for accountability because you know that double or triple the number of people are going to complete, it's worth it. That's fine. Or you and I can work together to create a promotion for your members, and so that they could buy their own seat inside of your basically your accountability channel on the Results Breakthrough Network, and they pay for it themselves. And by the way, if they pay for it themselves, my company is set up to pay an affiliate commission to everybody who does that with me.
Very, very interesting. So definitely if folks have courses that they want to get the value from that they've not yet completed, they can visit resultsbreakthrough.com. And I think you have a free trial, don't you?
We do. So I'm going to announce the free trial. I generally don't do this, but because you're so special and you have such a great show, I wanted to let your listeners know that if you go to resultsbreakthrough.com and you click any of the red buttons on that screen, you'll get to a page where if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see 3 boxes: monthly, yearly pricing, and a try it now for free button. If you try it now for free, you'll be able to create your profile, but you won't be able to search for partners. But for you, Nicole, I'm going to give everybody 30 days of full access. All you got to do is use what's called the group code WINNER, WINNER, in all caps. And if you do that, you could set up your profile. You could start searching for partners. You can have sessions for up to 30 days and see if you like it.
Very cool. Well, very exciting. All right, so this is going really well, but we're just going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor today, and we'll be right back with more from Mitch Russo. Are you an expert in what you do but struggle to get the results you want in your business? Are things taking longer than you expected them to and costing more than you expected? If you feel like you're stuck on a plateau, understand that what got you here is not going to get you further. You need an expert business roadmap. And my good friend, Danny Iny, wants to gift it to you. In the past, tickets to Danny's 3-day in-person expert business training sold for up to $1,000. But he's inviting my BBR Show audience to get yours for free right now. Lift happens April 19th to the 21st in beautiful Montreal, Canada, and you can get all of the details by visiting bbrshow.com/lift. All right, so now we are back with more from Mitch Russo. Okay, so this is like the opposite of how we normally do the show. Normally we talk about the products and stuff at the end, but very excited. And I definitely, when you told me about it, I was super stoked. And
Cool.
And, you know, something that if my listeners don't already know you, Mitch, if they haven't already experienced your show, if they haven't already experienced working with you, something they may not know is how extremely generous you are. And
thank you.
You're such a valuable resource. And you're always looking at how can, I think, I mean, this is just my take. You're always looking at how can I help people, like make life easier for them and connect people. And I remember right after we recorded for your podcast, you were asking me like about my production and kind of how I do my show notes and stuff like that. And you said, listen, look at this. And you showed me what's going on with yours. And then you told me about your marketing guy, who your producer. And you're like, let me connect you if you want to connect. And within 24 hours, he became my marketing guy. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's fun because I think, you know, I don't think I realized, even though I realized how interesting and valuable it was to interview people right from the beginning and to get to know about experts and to help them use my platform to reach more people who they could help. What it took me a while to figure out was how to also, just in a one-on-one way, provide resources to people, to just not let it be, okay, well, let me help you get your word out, but actually take that next step to say, what are you looking for right now? Like, what are you working on? You know, how could I support you? And I think that how could I support you is a very general question, but to be able to ask people really what their needs are and be able to then introduce them or give them tips or strategy or anything like that. So can you talk a little bit about how you do that? If it's intentional, if it's just natural, like how did this evolve or have you always done it?
Well, I think for me, you know, I told you the story that I started the show with about me getting into trouble with drugs. There's a feature I didn't tell you about inside the resultsbreakthrough.com system. There's a box on your profile that if you check it and agree to be a 10-minute mentor, it's a voluntary program. And if you check that box through a third party, through a charitable organization, we will set you up with an inner city high school kid who would love to be connected to an adult who's non-judgmental and could listen and share what their life is in the world that they live in. And remember when I told you about my troubles with drugs, I had this feeling, what would have happened if I would have had a 10-minute mentor, an adult that I could have shared, you know, my life with and the troubles that I went through as a high school kid? Maybe I wouldn't have turned to putting a needle in my arm, you know? And so part of what I decided to do with this business was to turn it into a way to help a lot more people in a much bigger way, which really became now my mission. And so that's where all of this, it started with a great idea to make a program to help a lot of people become accountability partners. And it's evolving into something that potentially can help. My goal is 10,000 high school kids all over the country. And that's just the beginning. So for me, when I meet somebody new, one of the first things I want to know is who can I connect you to? I could say, how can I help you? But like you said, that's a general question. I like to ask, who can I connect you to? Because I have a vast network of people that I know, and they're all kind of like you and me in that we're so open to sharing what we know and who we know if it could help another person. So immediately when we talk, you connect me to somebody else who ended up on my podcast, who now I'm helping promote her programs, etc. That's the way the world works. I mean, to me, it's just a natural way that allows me to feel like I'm participating in life. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And something you just said, I just want to touch on. You said that's how the world works. And I think a lot of people don't realize that because that's how the world works. But I would venture a guess that the majority of people don't recognize that. And so they get stuck in the drama of the news and all the bad things happening and all the unfortunate, horrible situations. And these are things that people talk about.
Yes.
And people perpetuate because they're talking about it. And because they're like, I hear about different crimes and things and people speculating on what the perpetrator was going through and what the victim was going through. And I mean, having been in law enforcement, I'm just like, I can't, it's really hard for me to listen to because number one, it's never what people who have no connection to the actual situation seem to think based on the media. And number two is why are we having this conversation? Because we can focus on what we do want. We can focus on being the people who we want to see more of in the world. And the more I think we focus on that, the more that is our reality. And so you and I were just in San Diego last week at time of recording. And it was like we were surrounded by all these incredible people who are all of that mindset. Who can I introduce you? I mean, I was introduced and positioned like a rock star to so many people who have groups and audiences that are far more like at a far higher level than I've even been reaching out to. And people were introducing me to these people and saying, Nicole is like the expert on podcast guesting. We need her at our mastermind. We need her to come and teach our people. And like many of these people, they're done for you kind of people. And so I've had people go, oh, I've got 50 members who would love to hire you. I'm like, wait, what? So instant, literally in like the course of a week, I have all these contracts coming in that I never could have foreseen or tried to get, but for being generous and for being open to the relationships and for being willing to connect and willing to share points of view. Like the person that I connected you with for your show, I sat down and spent over an hour with that person, giving her every bit of my expertise that I could, answering all of her questions, which is now integrated into her program. And a lot of people, I think, would say, well, I'm not giving away my trade secrets or I'm not sharing this. But it's like the more you share, I really believe the more, and I mean, you share with the right people. You don't share with slime balls. You don't share with people who are out there to take. You share with like-minded people who want to be mentors, who want to support hand-up philosophies. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you know that in order to get, you have to give. And that's a very simple way of saying it. I don't give to get. I already have. So my position is I feel abundant in my life. I feel lucky to be where I am every day in my life, living in this beautiful life that I live in. And it might be temporary. Tomorrow it all might end. But today and every day, I wake up with the feeling of, hey, I'm thrilled to be here today. And who can I help today? I keep a journal. That's one of the questions I write down almost every morning is, who can I help today? Who can I connect with another person who needs their help today? And
I love that.
It's
who can I help today to start your day?
In fact, it's one of my accountability questions in my own program with my own accountability coach. And, or did I help at least 10 people last week? It's on my list. It's there because it's important to me. I mean, I won't lie. It makes me feel good. It's that simple. And so if I help another person, I feel good. And I particularly feel great if they got enormous value from the time that they spent with me.
So good. I just wrote that down. Like that's going into my morning routine. Who can I help today? It's such a different position than most people take. And so I love it. Are we going to talk about mindset some more now? Should
Absolutely.
we go there?
Sure.
All right. So let's go back in time to when you were CEO with Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes. And Can you tell me a little bit about how you wound up there in the first place?
Okay, that's a bit of a long story, but I'll do my best to shorten it. So I started a software company, as you read. I think you read that in my introduction. And when I built that software company, I had this sales guy call on me named Chet Holmes. And he was a pesky, persistent guy. He did not let up. He just had decided that I had to be one of his clients. And as a result, he just kept coming at me. And I kept saying no, or I would say, well, that's not good enough. Do better on your pricing, et cetera, until eventually, it must have been a year and a half or so, I finally bought. And when I bought and worked with him and got into the magazines that he advertised in, it basically changed my company. I mean, the timing was right. It boosted our revenue by almost 40% just by running magazine advertising in the journals that he created. So we became friends, and we became great friends. He would travel all over the place, and we would always arrange to meet whenever he traveled to the East Coast. I would fly out to New York to hang out with him. He'd fly into Boston. Whatever it was, we would always meet. Then as the company grew and grew, and I sold the company, we still stayed friends. I brought him in as a sales trainer to Sage when I was running Sage. Then, all throughout the years after that, we spoke every week, and we would debate faith and philosophy and life and time and all the great conversations that good friends have. And then one day he asked me, look, I'm having some difficulty with something going on at my company. Can you step in and help me? And I said, of course, that's what friends are for. I would do that with you without a doubt, without a hesitation. So I stepped in, I helped him with the problem. And at that point, I said, okay, buddy, your problem's solved. I hope it was worthwhile for you. And he goes, where do you think you're going? And I said, well, I kind of told you, your problem is solved. He goes, no. You're staying. I want you to be part of the company now. I said, really? He said, yep, you got to stay. So I actually accepted a position to work with Chet, just helping him out. Eventually, a few months later, he promoted me to be the president of the company. I said, yes. Then we began negotiations with Tony Robbins. And it was in that conversation, and these conversations with Tony happened, I think, every Thursday night. And we would talk for months on Thursday nights to try and figure out a structure that would work for for the three of us to form a company together. And we did. And that became Business Breakthroughs International. And that became probably one of the highlights of my life, working with Chet and Tony, having Tony Robbins basically as a business coach and mentor for 5 solid years was an amazing experience, one I'll never forget, and one that Tony and I are still friends to this day. So I always appreciate him.
That's so wonderful. I love the story. I love that you just shared it. And it really is the same journey as we've been talking about, just really being open to those opportunities. And while I'm really impressed that Chet was persisted for a year and a half, didn't take no for an answer, although that says a lot about you too for being so patient, because I don't know if somebody was trying to sell me for a year and a half. But I think that must also speak to who he is and how he delivers, and coming from a space of value and knowing that what he has to offer you is going to make a difference and an impact in your business, eh?
Well, first of all, Chet was known for his pigheaded discipline. That was his, you might call it his tagline. And, and before he passed away, he shared that story many, many times. And here's the way Chet would have told you. If he was sitting here right next to me, he wouldn't have thought of himself as being necessarily overly persistent or bugging me to try and get me to sell. The way he would phrase it, he says, listen, Mitch, I have a moral obligation to bring you into this publication because I know it's going to work for you. I know what you will get from it. I know that I will affect you and all the families that work for you. That's why I do this. That's why I will not give up until we work together. And that is the philosophy of his life. And that is the philosophy that I try to live as well, which is to understand and know that really, if you have something that is so wonderful and so powerful, not because you think so, because you've seen the transformation that what you do has in others, then you listener, you have a moral obligation to close that sale, to get that client, because you can change their lives. And if you don't, then boo-hoo for you, because you're the one who blew it, not them. You're the one who loses out. They'll lose out too, but you just lost out. And instead, stay focused on really why and how what you do benefits that other person. That's what I mean by having a moral obligation.
Such sage advice, and so important, because so many entrepreneurs, as we both know, really struggle with sales, really struggle with taking that stand and going the course. Most people take no for an answer. And it's something that I'm always challenged with. I've always been challenged with and continue to be challenged with. And I'm going to go back to this interview time and again and just really, I'm emotional right now. Just such a beautiful place to end the very seemingly short interview and just really honoring Chet's legacy. And so before we do end, final words of wisdom for you before we leave our listeners with some more ways they can reach out to you?
Well, sure. I don't know if I have so much wisdom to impart as I basically have gratitude. And I just want to say that, every one of us, you, me, we're all here for a reason. And it doesn't require that we know the reason, but we're here for a reason. So stop trying to run around and say, I can't find my reason. I got to figure out why I'm here. Forget that. You're here because you're here. And the best way to search for and find what you're truly meant to do is to help others find and do what they're truly meant to do. And that potentially can be and where you find your calling.
Brilliant. And so we can go to resultsbreakthrough.com and try for free the software by entering all caps the code WINNER at the bottom. And where else? Do you want to share about the podcast or anything else that you're up to that people can find you and listen to more of your sage advice?
Absolutely. You can go to mitchrusso.com, mitchrusso.com. And the name of my podcast is Your First 1,000 Clients. And this is a show focused entirely on helping people get to 1,000 clients and beyond. It's that simple. And we bring people on, smart people, generous people like you, who have gotten to 1,000 clients and beyond. And we try to understand and unpack their wisdom as to how they did it so that you could do it too. It's called R&D, rip off and deploy.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Mitch, thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure, Nicole.
And there you have it. If you enjoyed this episode of the Business Building Rockstar Show, be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you don't miss a thing. And visit bbrshow.com for all the show notes and links to resources discussed on today's show. Plus, lots more.